It's games in the Bible on this episode of Play Saves the World, the ongoing conversation on games and spirituality. You were channeling your inner Bee Gees there.
That was good.
I loved it.
I think I was harmonizing, which is hard with keyboards.
It is, but you did it well. You did it well.
I think I nailed it. Yeah,
I loved it. I loved it. Welcome, everybody. Maybe you were harmonizing to the theme song there too. If you were, kudos to you. We're sorry we couldn't hear it. Welcome to Play Saves the World. Dear listeners, dear viewers, if you're watching on YouTube, we're so grateful that you are a part of this conversation today. My name is Daniel Hilty.
And my name is Kevin Taylor.
And we're excited that you joined us for a conversation today about games in the Bible. But first, before we get to that, Kevin, if people like this kind of conversation about games and spirituality and play and matters of religion and faith and things like that, how can they support us?
Oh, man, you can tell a friend, you can like and subscribe, you can shake that little bell on YouTube, just ding, ding, ding. And
Ding, ding, ding.
you can also help us with some of the financial costs of this podcast by supporting us at patreon.com/playsavestheworld. No financial denomination will be refused.
It will not be refused, right? Yeah,
or religious denomination.
No, nothing. No, either denomination, no kind of denomination will be refused.
No denomination.
Right. That's right. All are welcome here.
That's right.
So, and we really appreciate all of the signs of support. We love hearing from you all on social media and email and any support on Patreon too. We're really, really grateful. So, Kevin, today we're talking about an idea that was inspired by the guest on our last episode, Dan Thoreau, who joined us for Games as Devotion Part 2. I almost named that episode, or I almost was thinking about calling that episode Return of Space Biff, because that was
that would be good.
That is his handle. But he mentioned this idea briefly. He touched on this idea of where we see games in the Bible, right? And so you and I got talking together and we decided, well, what if we had a whole episode on games in the Bible? So kudos to Dan Thoreau. Yeah.
Kudos
what
to
is
Daniel.
it? What's the problem?
So we investigated it and there aren't any tabletop games in the Bible. So we want to thank everyone for listening to today's episode.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Again, if you love this kind of conversation, please support
Thanks, Dan Thoreau.
Exactly right. That's exactly right. No, that's right. There is that obscure verse in Habakkuk where they play a game of Uno, but everybody got really angry, and so everyone skips over it because it's awful.
It was
a
Hebrew word, and it could mean the Hebrew number for one or the Spanish, or it could also mean the a cattle stick.
That's right.
It's debated. So if you look in your Bible, it has a little footnote letter and it has all the possible meanings of the word.
Yeah.
So that's why it's not acknowledged.
For centuries, people have assumed it was about a cattle stick, and only recently have the hip modern scholars realized that Habakkuk might have been playing Uno. Right.
Might have been playing Uno.
And so, back then it was really hard because there were huge stone slabs that you had, and when you tried to set of cards.
Back muscles.
Yeah, no, it was fantastic. Habakkuk was ripped, man. Ripped. No, we're making all this up.
Poker was hard back then with the stone slabs because you could look at your cards once. That's about all you could do.
I don't have it in me.
Tired.
Sorry. Let's continue this tomorrow.
Why do we have to do this?
No, obviously you're making all this up. If this is your first time listening to us, you may not know our humor yet. But it is true that there aren't tabletop games in the Bible, right? Which is kind of, I don't know if it's odd, but it's not indicative of an absence of tabletop games in the ancient Mediterranean world. There were some tabletop games around. Archaeologists, historians talk about the royal game, a royal game of of course, being the land that Abram and Sarai came from. There was the popular game of Senet in Egypt, and a lot of excavations, archaeological dig sites have discovered, kind of game-like elements, things that we identify today, that scholars identify today as elements of some sort of early board games in the
Hmm.
ancient Mediterranean world, in the time and the land of the Bible. But it's not mentioned in the Bible, right?
Right.
There's no passage about people sitting around
No.
uh, a flat surface and playing a game together. Yeah,
No, and of course we're using board game metaphorically here because they probably didn't have a board. I mean, they may have had something that was carved out, but it may have involved something else, like some kind of dice or like is it Mancala, right?
Mancala,
Yeah,
Mancala.
with
Yeah,
so they the thing is, we know that games are omnipresent in human culture.
that's
So
right.
it's
From the
kind
very
of a
beginning.
given. So it's hard to imagine they weren't playing some sort of games, but we have no evidence of that. We're just kind of hypothesizing. But that's what people do. They invent some sort of game
That's right.
of some sort, and it makes sense that the Bible does not record all of the aspects of the ancient world, and we don't know what they ate for lunch, and we don't know a lot of things that you can't record everything, and so we
That's right.
don't know how they amuse themselves in the
That's right.
ancient world.
That's right. It wasn't meant to be a handbook of ancient play practices, but yeah, but no, you're exactly right. The games and play have been a part of human civilization from the very beginning and in all parts of the world. And as we talked before on this podcast, often, the distinction between games and playful activities maybe are not quite as distinct, as the distinction is not quite as sharp as we make it in English. That in a lot of ways, whenever you're playing, you're kind of doing the game. Whenever that
Hmm.
play and games are kind of approaching the same idea. So in the Bible, even though we don't find early versions of Monopoly or Uno or Apples to Apples or whatever, we
Hmm.
are um, finding a couple things. There are passages that involve what we would today call like items, randomizing items, right? Objects of
Hmm.
randomization, which which we would identify today as artifacts, items, objects associated with games, for example, like dice and cards and things like that. Um, and so that's one category of elements we find in the Bible. And then we also find passages dealing with kind of a more game-like or playful spirit, right? Is that fair to say? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah,
And so we see games connected with a randomizer, like you're saying, the idea that God can work through luck or through opportunity or chance.
right,
And this
right.
is present in the Christian tradition in all sorts of ways. I think this is right, but Moravians used to elect their bishop by putting basically names in a hat or in the
Really?
Bible, and they'd pull out, who was going to be bishop by, I don't know how you'd put it in the Bible, maybe just place it on it and mix them around. There's an idea for Christians to open the Bible and see what passage you find just by opening it. And
Yeah,
that's what
yeah.
God is telling you today. So all of those are forms of, as you're saying, a randomizer, and it's giving God the opportunity to use that randomization to speak or to do something. And there is elements of that in the Bible as we're speaking. This isn't in the notes, but I believe the famous bit in Ruth where Ruth comes across Boaz's field.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
says the verse there is, by chance, but clearly it
Ah,
was all by God's working
interesting,
because
interesting.
that ends up being David's great grandparents,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. That's a great point. Yeah, these are elements that in our modern mindset we would identify as introducing chance. But yeah, in the biblical mindset, they were seen as instruments through which the Spirit of God could speak into the situation, right? That in the biblical mindset, this wasn't chance. This was an element that God was using to speak, right? To say something. Yeah. And so, yeah, and we see that, in a lot of different places, as you said, kind of Ruth saying the text saying that Ruth came across the Boaz field by chance. The Bible speaks a lot about casting lots. There's a lot of lots in the Bible. And there's a character named Lot too. However, Lot doesn't say a lot about lots.
And he did cast himself occasionally because he was a diver.
He was a diver.
And so he cast himself into the
into
waters,
the sea. He was casting lots. He was casting the original casting, the OG casting of Lot. That's right. That's right.
Yes.
And so, like Kevin, I mean, we don't really talk much about casting lots today. If that's a new concept to some of our listeners, what does that mean?
What it is?
Yeah, we don't really know what it is, do we?
Part of it.
Yeah.
Which I think is cool and legitimate. Of course we wouldn't. This is part of an ancient practice that we have a glimpse of, but it wasn't preserved because it was so long ago.
Right.
We're talking 2,500 years ago. I don't know what the last instance of them using the lots in the Bible. Of course, that doesn't mean they didn't use it after that, but if we go back, it was not used. It doesn't appear in the New Testament, right?
Or it does.
No, it does.
Acts
You're
1.
right. I'm thinking of Urim and Thummim. I'm thinking of them as the lots. Yes,
that's the
so
star of the show.
They're not in the New Testament.
Yes.
Yeah,
but you're right. I read one commentary that noted, do this whatever one wants to, but that the last time casting lots were mentioned in the Bible, in the Christian Bible, is in Acts 1. And Dan Thoreau mentioned this last episode, where lots were used to pick the successor to Judas among the 12 disciples of Jesus. And this commentary noted that after that, immediately comes after that is Pentecost, right? So the coming of the Holy Spirit, God dwelling within us, according to classical Christian theology. And this commentator said, well, yeah, that casting lots was no longer necessary after that because of the Spirit's indwelling after that point. Yeah, which is kind of a neat way of looking at it, maybe.
But given Christian practices, that's not really true. People continue,
it's not
like
really
we're saying,
true.
they open the Bible, or some churches. I mean, you can claim to not do it, but lots of people, give things to God, or let's see what happens in this situation. And that's a similar randomization.
Yeah,
the idea that the Spirit just always tells you exactly what to do, I think, is a real falsification.
No, it's a nice narrative technique. If that was the reason it was done, but yeah, it certainly, I think, doesn't speak to the complexity of the Christian experience since that time,
right? Or the human experience. Everyone's
human experience,
just trying to do the best we can, and we don't have all the answers. So yeah.
When I think of casting lots today, one of the, I guess, more modern elements that come to my mind, and people don't do it anymore even today, but this idea of drawing straws, like who draws a short straw, that this idea that somebody's holding a fistful of straws, and one of them is a little bit shorter, and the one who draws out the short straw is the one that the lots have fallen to, right? So it's kind of a similar idea. Maybe it was pieces of wood, maybe there was some marked stones, something like that, but they would cast lots in the Bible to try to determine what they believed was God's decision, God's word about all sorts of things. In Joshua, casting lots was used to determine how the Israelites divvied up the land when they came into the land. In Jonah, the sailors cast lots to figure out who's responsible for the storm that was battering.
And that's where it is valid, because it gives them the right answer.
It's exactly right. It's
exactly Jonah.
Yeah.
I love Jonah.
Jonah's Jonah's one of the best books. Yeah. The soldiers cast lots for Jesus' clothing at the cross. So yeah, it shows up a lot. Lots show up. I don't mean to. I'm not trying to do horrible humor there again and again and again. But there's a lot of lots in the Bible, including the guy named Lot. And yeah, so that's one element that we would see today as a game element, right? Some randomization that shows blah, blah. But is there anything else, Kevin, on lots before we get to the star of the show?
You mean the part 2?
Well,
We
we
I want to
mentioned
talk
them
about
briefly.
Urim and Thummim.
In my mind, Urim and
That's the
Thummim
star.
are the stars of this show.
Okay, good.
After you, because you, of course, are the star of every episode and every show. But then after you, yeah,
But see,
Urim and Thummim.
the true star of the show would always point to the others. Thereby, you have revealed yourself as the star of the show.
I am not the traitor.
I must decrease so the Daniel
I'm not the werewolf.
Literally,
No,
I'm shrieking on camera.
No, it's you. But yes, so Kevin, please, I feel like all of our years of doing this podcast have led up to this moment of talking about the Urim and the Thummim, because we've mentioned them off and on forever in our shows. Please enlighten us, if you will, please. What are Urim and Thummim in the Bible?
Okay, I'm going to tell everyone what they are.
Yes.
We don't know. Which again is historically believable, right?
Yeah,
absolutely. If they said this is exactly what it is and we have them here and we kept them, that would actually point to kind of a falsification. So the idea that this ancient practice was lost, and maybe with the Babylonian conquest, if it was there in the temple and the temple was destroyed, when the Ark of the Covenant was taken away, it could have. I think there's a thing that it might have been in the Ark. Is there a tradition somewhere that they were kept in the Ark? I may be wrong on that. I think there's various ideas of what was in the Ark. Like there's the 10 Commandments, but maybe the rod of Jesse or something like that. There's some various things
like that.
that, or maybe Moses' staff. So it seems like they're not even sure what was in the Ark. But again, over hundreds of years, it may have changed.
Right. Yeah.
But yes, Urim and Thummim, we don't really know, but there is a later tradition coming out of the rabbis, right? The Talmud, that dates to roughly the time of the New Testament, around 2,000 years ago. They thought of it as some divining stones, some type of stones that were actually placed within this breastplate that the high priest wore. And that it was placed in there, but we're not sure, I don't think.
Right. No, I think it's right.
Well, I think maybe in the Bible it does mention that was worn, but we don't exactly know what that means.
Right. I think other scholars have talked about this idea that, as you said, some like in the breastplate. I read something else that said possibly it was like a set of 2 stones or something like that in a sack, in a bag that the priest wore around the chest. But basically it was the Urim and the Thummim. They were basically what we would say 2 randomized elements through which it was believed that God would provide an answer to an either or question, right? Like a question with only 2 possible answers. One answer would be if the Urim somehow was revealed in however this happened, we don't know. That would mean that God answered A on whatever the question was. And if the Thummim was revealed or whatever, that somehow would indicate that God answers B, right? In an A and B kind of question. Does that sound right?
And the weird bit to me is because, of course, I think of flipping a coin, so I would make me think that Urim was heads and Thummim was tails, but we don't know. We don't know how
I like that. Did you see in the Super Bowl that they determined who the opening team was with Urim and Thummim? They did. They did. They unearthed it. Had all sorts of Bible scholars on the field explaining
and then
its
they put it in a t-shirt cannon and fired it into the crowd.
They did. Some little boy from Wisconsin was there, and he caught the t-shirt containing the Urim and the Thummim.
Yes.
And now he's a viral sensation. Everyone's really excited to find him.
Yes. For some reason, I always thought it was Urim and Thummim. I think I just corrupted it. Because when you were typing this in our notes, I was like, Daniel's doing this wrong. And then I looked it up and, of course, realized that I was wrong. I don't know why I did that.
I also, for most of my life, have thought it was Urim and Thummim. And then just in getting ready for this episode, I saw that it was the Urim too. Yeah, Urim.
You think they misled us?
It won't be the first time that Methodists have misled.
That's right.
No,
We need more M's and Urim and Thummim.
that's right. That's right.
So this is where we different having commonalities. So religions are different, but they do have some similar divining the will of God or the gods, whether it was reading the flight of birds in the air. The priests, it's usually the priest of some sort would do this. They would read entrails, right, from animals.
Yeah, yeah,
They
yeah,
would might read dreams. Actually, that's another one we could have included almost is the
yeah. That's true.
interpretation of dreams, because dreams are random, but then
Yeah,
you need an
yeah.
interpreter. But
That's
anyway, yes,
yeah,
so this type of mancy, right? It's a sort of a reading of something
yeah,
is present in the Bible.
yeah,
And
yeah.
and it's game-like in the sense that it is chance, so a very basic game, which is rolling dice to see whose numbers are higher. Doesn't have a lot of agency, but that is a game.
Right. They involve elements that we would identify today as elements of a game, right? Actual artifacts, actual objects, these
Mhm.
randomizing objects. So we would say today they weren't seen as randomizing in the Bible, but yeah. So
And they're
so that's one
incorporated,
way.
yeah,
Yeah, one
into
way we see
games.
games in the Bible. But then yeah, you also lifted up, Kevin, some wonderful passages in the Bible that don't necessarily involve these elements, these artifacts of randomization, but do reflect a kind of game-like mindset or playful mindset or spirit. And you mind sharing a little bit about those, please?
Yeah, and, you can argue this is a stretch, this is an interpretation, but it did seem to me that one of the teachings of Jesus, the parable of the talents, is game-like because it involves strategy. So the story is told that there is a master who, for his employees, his servants, he gives them money to go and make more money with. And that's where our word talent actually comes from, is from the Greek word from this very story, the talenton. And talent was also a type of money back in the ancient world, in the Greco-Roman world, right? Uh, so the idea is you want to play the game well and take what was given to you and make more points. And that seems like a very type of Euro game, and it has a lot of agency. It's not a Urim and Thummim positive or negative. It's a how do I do this well? And interestingly, the one that is rewarded is the one that has the biggest gains.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love how you thought of this for this episode, Kevin. It's a great idea that it does it does kind of have a lot of elements of what we would call, in the hobby board game world today, call a Euro game, kind of maximizing your points. For our listeners who are not familiar with Euro games are a type of popular hobby board game today where you're not trying to necessarily eliminate your opponent, but you're just trying to get more points than your opponent. And you do that by maximizing all sorts of strategies to get more points. Yeah. And that, I mean, that's kind of what the parable is about, right? Like how can I maximize this investment to,
Yeah,
or this
and
amount of money to make
and the
more?
point
Yeah.
and the point of the parable is, I mean, that's debatable, but one of the clear things that people would point to, sorry, I'm overusing point, is that all of life is a game.
Hmm. Hmm.
So we want to sort of score points in the sense of doing things from a religious point of view, doing things that are close to the heart of God.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we can
Yeah.
debate
Yeah.
what that is, and that takes different forms for different people, but certainly acting out of love, being kind, being generous, it's actually not, it's not that, it's not a big secret. The older I get, I'm like, 10 Commandments, or I guess a couple of them are a surprise, but the others are a little obvious. It's not that hard, and most cultures agree on them. Don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal. But yeah, don't kill. So yes, life is a bit of a game, and we're trying to score points. And there is some evidence in the Bible. You can argue that there might be levels of the afterlife.
Hmm.
Like, great, will someone's name be in heaven? And I think
Hmm.
John Wesley has a sermon on this. So,
Really? Okay.
yeah, something about the wedding
Interesting.
garment, maybe.
Interesting. Interesting.
I'm not sure I really believe that, but it is kind of a nice idea that we should try to play the game of life well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and one similar one is the story of David against Goliath. He strategizes that he's given the armor of Saul to fight Goliath in, and instead he turns his back on that, just goes in with 5 stones in his sling. So
Mm-hmm.
that's
Mm-hmm.
connecting a lot of games are born out of wargaming and strategy
Mm-hmm.
for
Mm-hmm.
wars. Chess being kind of a battlefield, and the
Yeah.
Prussians doing war strategy gaming in the 1800s.
Yeah.
And that's what David's doing. And so he strategized a way like, I can't defeat Goliath in this armor. It makes me too heavy. I've got to be more clever than that. And
Right.
it might be a
Right.
stretch. This is partly about cleverness and intuition, but games work that way as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are your
Yeah.
thoughts? Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that. Yeah. I, I, I love that sense of, well, it brings up, previous discussions we had on this episode of, like, with Jane McGonigal's book and things, just kind of the gamification of life, like how thinking of approaching systems in life from a sense of, yeah, in a way, kind of creating unnecessary obstacles as a way to try to get us to have a sense of agency and joy and moving toward some sort of goal, whether it is a especially meaningful goal or not. It also makes me think another passage in the Bible, or a class of passages in the Bible that came to mind in thinking about this episode today, is those passages involving Jesus eating with people, sharing meals with people, especially like the Passover meal, but other meals as well. And I want to give credit to somebody, and unfortunately, I cannot think who it is. I apologize, but it's so. If in the off chance they're listening, I please know, friend, I want to credit you, but I can't remember the conversation. But somebody said to me once this idea that the closest thing they felt like they came to board games in the Bible were these moments where Jesus would sit down with folks and have meals with them, right? And there there is a certain element of playfulness of that, of being present, of grace, and all of those are elements we've talked in the past on this episode about of being essential elements for play in games, right? You're present to the other person. There's a certain kind of grace in the magic circle of play in games, and that happens at meals too. Um, Maybe a subset of that is this idea of ritualized meals, like Passover in the Bible, or um, the Seder, another name for the Passover. But this sense of this element on the table, this piece of food, it contains. It represents this significance, right? It reminds us of this, and
Yes, I
that's a
see
very
now.
playful sense that this, like this piece on the game board, it represents this.
Yes, yes.
That there's a certain playfulness in game likeness to any kind of ritual. Yeah, so I just lift that up as well. Yeah, they don't involve randomizing pieces, but they do have kind of a game like playful element to them.
Yeah, no, I see it. There's not a win condition. You don't really, but you do have kind of a goal, which is to follow the rules, which is, wait till they pass you the bread plate or wait till it's time to eat. And you're certainly in a kind of a magic circle, which is you're doing something different that has a beginning and an ending.
Yeah,
So we
yeah,
enter this space, and that's church, that's religion, that's mosque prayer, right? So temple, it's board games. Um, yeah, you're entering this space that's different, but then I also find really interesting, it always ends. You don't stay in that space, you put it away. So the mass is ended because the word mass means ending or something, right? In the original Latin.
really, I didn't know
I
that.
think so.
Interesting.
Like the mass has
Uh,
ended, kind of then just it became called the mass. So it references its own
sorry,
end, but that's
sorry.
just the weirdness of language. But yeah, you put the game away, you go back to your real life. You leave the magic circle. You don't just stay in it forever.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. I love that.
But
That's so
hopefully the
good.
circle has changed something in you. So you leave feeling joy or at peace or, renewed or recharged, or you see the world differently. So yeah, in Passover, I can see that. I can see especially well, any meal, but a meal that has sacred. So I guess the Lord's Supper, maybe? I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
It's a little
yeah. No,
different because that or Eucharist, whatever you want to call it, Holy Communion.
I think, I mean, I think that's fair. I mean, and not to get into, I know different Christian denominations have different understandings of the way in which the body and blood of Christ relate to the elements on the table. But setting all of that aside, the different understandings, I mean, there is this sense that, um, however it happens, to whatever it happens, the bread and the wine or the bread and the juice, they either are or point to or represent a different reality. Yeah. And which is a certain kind of, there's a certain kind of playful mindset to that, or
Hmm.
a game like mindset to that. And again, that's in no way to take away from the truth of that, the reality of that, the belief in that. It's
Correct. It can be both.
we're
It
just
doesn't
talking
have
about
to be
parallels.
binary.
Yeah, yeah, that
Yeah.
we see here. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's so cool. And then you mentioned another passage that came to your mind, Kevin, in our show notes, where Jesus welcomes children, right, as an element of this playfulness or game
Yeah,
likeness.
and this is, a stretch, but children, we typically, just requires one letter change there, right? Little mental typo. We typically think of children as playful, and so it's hard. Yeah, well, I have read some commentary that what he's talking about is a group of people that were so lowly regarded in the ancient world, which is strange for us because we think of children as, we put them in, we see children very differently today, but in the ancient world, they would have eaten last in the family. They had very few rights. So you could argue that when he says, this is the kingdom of God belongs to children, he's really reiterating that, blessed are the humble and blessed are the poor in spirit, so that we should be more connected to those that are disadvantaged. So you
Yeah,
could argue that. But lots
yeah,
of people would also bring up this idea that children are playful and they break the rules. That was part of it, is that the families with the kids are trying to bring them to Jesus. And in Mark especially, he tells them, let the children, and then the disciples still don't, they try to keep them away, and then he really gets frustrated with them
yeah, yeah,
because within
yeah,
just one chapter, they already start kind of going against what he's explicitly said. But yeah, he says, theirs is the kingdom of heaven, and let the little children come unto me. And the wonderful King James, suffer the little children to come unto me, which doesn't mean what we mean suffer. The word's changed in 400 years, but it's still kind of cool,
right.
very metal. But yeah, he takes them in his arms and he blesses them. And this sense of, yeah, I love that. I love the idea of playfulness. It's maybe the closest we get to a little bit of a smile, maybe on Jesus' face, I would think.
Yeah, yeah,
Doesn't
yeah,
say that explicitly, but it's hard to not see a child and smile for most people.
yeah. I love the way you put that. Yeah, it's hard to imagine Jesus saying, "Let the little children come to me," or "Suffer the little children come to me," or however you translate it, and not have a smile on the face, right?
Yeah.
Like, like, "Hey, let them come here."
I am
That's
a grump, and I should now allow the children to come
that's
forward,
right. That's right.
because theirs is the kingdom of God.
Yeah, that's right. That's
Grump
it.
McGrump.
It implies a certain joy and welcome and openness.
Mm.
Yeah, and happiness. Yeah, and I love that. No, it's good because as we've talked before on this podcast, play games certainly, as you said at the beginning of the episode, Kevin, a part of the human condition in every age and of every human age and every generation. But it is also true that children are often the standard bearers for what it means to lead a playful life,
Yeah.
and yeah. So I love that. That's great.
Thanks, man.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So
Well, what
can we
sort
draw
of,
some? Yeah.
yeah,
Let's draw some thoughts.
general reflections? Yeah. Um, do you want me to? I can hit out on the first one if you'd like.
You head out. You head
All
out,
right.
Chief.
I don't even know did people even say hit out? That's a weird.
We do. We
Okay,
say it
good,
now.
good, good. That's right. It's the new trend.
It's the new
Um,
6.5, 7.5.
so I guess some general reflections on this. We talk about these elements of what we would call randomization in the Bible. and how people saw the will of God somehow in them. And I think our modern mindset is to look at that and to say, and kind of smirk at it a little bit. And I mean, I do too, just say, well, isn't that interesting or charming or quaint or even superstitious, right? That we don't
Hmm.
really believe that anymore, that God speaks through randomization and chance. And I think we moderns may be kind of quick to dismiss it. And I just found myself trying to think through, well, what could we maybe learn from that if we weren't quite so quick to dismiss it? And um, I mean, just I think for one thing, I think it points to the reality that God is bigger than us, and it points to the reality that there is a God who's um, it points to the reality of God, a God uh, whose will, whose decision, whose longings may be different from mine, right? And if there were no reality of a God that is bigger than me, who might have different desires and a different will than mine, I really wouldn't need a randomization thing, right? To decide
Hmm.
that. I would just say, well, of course God agrees with me, right? And honestly, that is how we often live our lives. That's how I often live my life. That old there's an old song on the radio that said, we sit outside and argue all night long about a God we've never seen, but never fails to side with me. That's
Oh, right.
it's primitive radio gods. It was one of their songs. I mean, in some way, there's kind of a refreshing, whether we believe in this randomization element or not, there's something refreshing about something that points to the idea that God might have a different idea than I do, right? That
Right.
God might have a different desire than I do. And that's
Right.
something
Right.
very humbling and refreshing.
And we're not in control, and that's what
Yeah.
randomization allows us to do, is to acknowledge that we're not in control. And in the modern world, the current world, we're very used to control. We can control the climate to some degree with air conditioning and heat, and we live in these insulated homes. We can get in vehicles and travel 240 kilometers per hour or something like that.
Yeah, I
Roughly.
think I
I
think
think
that's
that's an
accurate. That's
accurate
right.
car speed, or it might be 20 kilometers an hour. I don't
I
know.
I think
I don't know how it
then
works.
you're approaching the speed of light, I think, at
I
20
think so. I've
kilometers per
never
hour.
driven a
Yeah.
kilometer vehicle, so I don't know
No,
what
it's
that's
because the speed is breakneck, man. Yeah, if you got in a kilometer vehicle, you
Speaking of,
would.
did you know in all the movies when they talk about clicks, like when they're in the military, like
Yeah,
they'll show
yeah.
and they'd be like, that's 2 clicks, that's a kilometer.
Really, a click
That's
is a
just
kilometer.
it's just like US maybe military. I don't know if the others do it. Is
Okay,
it's
interesting.
just slang for a kilometer.
For a kilometer. I
Clicks.
guess click is easier to say than kilometer.
I think so. I think
Yeah.
that's what it is. That's why America doesn't really adopted it, because we can't say it.
We
And
can't say
that's hard
kilometer.
for
Yeah.
us. It's a
I'm
little awkward.
struggling. It's taking all my energy right now at this point and focus to have said it how
Kilometer.
many times I've said it. Yeah, that's right.
I had 2 kilometers of coffee this morning. Is that a lot? Yeah. So we're not in control, and we think we are, but we're not. And so randomization gives a chance for us to, even if it doesn't work out, hey, we're reminded that we're not, that there is a God in the universe and we're not God, right? So
Right,
random
right.
things can happen, to embrace some randomization and to give a chance for our own desire, will, need to control to get in the back seat and not be in the front seat.
Right, right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And I will say, of course, in many church traditions, there's a lot of emphasis on intentional discernment and about the big questions of life, and of course of course there's value in gathering with others and praying and thinking and discerning and talking and conversation. So I'm not trying to take away any of that and say we should all just go to rolling
Of
dice to
course.
decide anything, but exactly the sense that we're not in control, and there is a certain hubris in thinking that we are, right?
Mhm.
What can we do to open ourselves up, as you said, to this greater reality of which we are not in control? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Today I'm going to go to the first restaurant I find.
Yeah.
Today I'm
Yeah.
going to turn left instead of right and see where it leads. I'm going to, just open
Yeah.
yourself
Yeah.
up to new experiences,
Yeah.
either not religious or religious. Yeah.
I mentioned on the I think our previous episode, I've started reading through the Tao Te Ching, foundational kind of Taoism book, and I've really enjoyed that a lot. And
Mm,
but one of its central arguments, as I read it at least, is just that we create so much suffering in the world and for ourselves the more we just try to exert our control.
right. Right.
And there's a certain compassion and benevolence both toward others and toward ourselves the more we try to loosen our grip on control.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Jesus, take the wheel. Let go and let God. These are all kind of attempts to get at this concept of control. So
yeah,
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 listeners might consider ways to smartly yield some control in their lives at times to see what happens. Um,
yeah,
we
yeah,
acknowledge that games establish some order things, and they make things that are random ordered and purposive. So you make some comments there in our notes about that.
yeah,
That
yeah. Do you mind if I add one
yeah,
little note on that? Or
please
thank
do.
you. This is just I guess the other reflection for me that I have on this is just that um, this sense of God speaking through randomization, what we would call randomization in the Bible, I think also points to the reality. It's a symbol of the reality. It's a picture of the reality, or whatever. That order really can come out of chaos, right? That something beautiful really can come out of something that we see as random. We see this in the world of science. I think it's the whole idea, I think, behind evolution, right? Um, and I'm not trying to disparage evolution. I adhere to that and all that, but the sense that there's this chaos of random genetic mutations, but out of this chaos of random genetic mutations, in time, something beautiful comes out of it, right? Something evolves out of it. There's evolution out of the randomness of genetic mutations. I think in some sense, that's even the message of the resurrection, right? In Christian theology, that there's this chaos of violence and death and the cross, but by golly, something beautiful even can come out of that seemingly random act of violence, something new and beautiful out of that. And so I like that kind of affirmation as well, that um, it's a picture, a snapshot
Hmm.
of how God can create something meaningful and beautiful out of something that seems random and chaotic. Does that
Yeah,
make sense? Or yeah,
it does absolutely. Yeah, it does. It does. Um, Yeah, I love that. And with the idea of the parables and this concept of playful or game-like mindset, I think this is a takeaway is to remind us, and this isn't in the notes, I'm riffing here, but
yeah, yeah,
um, reminds us that we should be playing a different game than the world. The world plays a certain game of get the right zip code, wear the right clothes, fit in, look like everyone else, go for what advertising and media tells you should do with your time and your money. And we should be playing a different game. We should be playing a game that is more aligned with who we are and how we experience God and believe God to be. So yeah, we should be playing a game that is a bit more revolutionary, hopefully.
yeah, yeah. I love that.
A secret
And because
game.
mm, because it's a game also, then yeah, that we live out of a life not out of a sense of obligation or compulsion, but out of the grace and joy of being part of a game. Yeah, just and the freedom of that kind of in the yeah. Yeah.
What if
What
what
if?
if when Jesus told Nicodemus that he had to be born from
Yeah.
above or born
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
again? What if he was talking about a game?
Oh, that might be. He had to achieve a certain
That was
number
the name
of
of the game that
he had
Jesus
to
wanted to play
upgrade.
with them.
That's right.
It's
Okay,
called
that's right.
Do you want to be born again?
I like it. I
He's
like
like,
it.
I haven't played this game.
Let me tell you.
Let me tell you, it's
Have you played
great.
this? There's
Do you
a
like
certain playful.
elephants? Do you like elephants? Do you like
That's
making elephants and feeding them hay. And Nicodemus was like, not really. Jesus was like, just give it a chance, man. Just give it a chance.
I mean, I love that you brought that up. I mean, there's undeniably a playfulness to that passage, right? Like, you got to be born a second time, or however that's, everyone defined that. And Nicodemus is like, what? Can I go back into the womb again? I mean, there's an undeniable playfulness and silliness to that kind of dialogue.
There is a little certain of, almost playing a part.
Yeah. I love that. Well, this has been great. Kevin, thank you so much. And it's been great hanging out with you, listeners and viewers. Kevin, anything else we should share? You want to share?
No. Besides, have a lovely, lovely rest of your day or evening.
Yep. Or morning.
We'll chat with you next time.
I think we should now flip a coin to see whether we should end the episode or go for 2 more hours. No, let's just end it. Okay.
Of course, remember the bit in Dark Knight where he's heads and tails, but it's a rigged coin?
No, I don't remember that.
Oh, Daniel. Yeah. It's the character becomes Two-Face, but originally he's like, I'll flip the coin heads or tails, but the trick is the coin is both heads. So he's always rigging the coin,
okay.
So it looks like he's giving you a randomization, but it really isn't.
Interesting.
And then he goes crazy and becomes Two-Face, and then one of them does become scarred, and then, yeah.
Oh.
It's okay. Batman wins.
So
don't get nervous. Yeah, Batman wins.
Okay, good. All right.
Everything's okay.
Well, thank you so much for listening, everybody. Kevin, thanks so much. We look forward to spending next time with you. Next time, we have a special guest, Dr. Lakeisha Lockhart, talking about play in theology, and it's going to be great. And we look forward to welcoming her.
That's right. Be well. Goodbye.
Take care. Bye-bye.